Hello, everyone. Let's get started. We give a few minutes for everyone to join, but uh, let's get started and people will join as we go. Um, uh, Thank you for taking time today to join this webinar. Before we start this webinar and go through what is that we are doing for Copado in terms of scaling up your DevOps practices and so forth and so on, I would like to quickly introduce myself and Swati, my colleague over here. So my name is Teja. I'm the co-founder and the CSO here at CloudFulcrum. I have 14 plus years of experience with Salesforce ecosystem. I started my career as an admin and went all the way to a technical architect, and now I take care of some of the implementations here and delivery here at CloudFulcrum. In the last 14 years, I have done more than 100 plus DevOps implementations across Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 companies. Yeah, that's a quick, brief introduction about myself. Swati?
Thanks, Teja. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. So, myself, Swati Agrawal. I have overall 10 plus years of experience. So, I started my journey with as a Flex developer, then moved to Salesforce, worked as a Salesforce developer for a couple of years. And then in 2018, I moved on as a release manager on Copado. And since then, I am working for Copado and currently working with CloudFulcrum as a Salesforce DevOps consultant. I'm a Copado multi-time mentor, Copado champion, and winner of Community Professional of the Year 2022 awards. Also, I participated in multiple Copado events and won majority of them. So yeah, that's it about me.
All right. Thanks, Swati. I would like to take a minute to introduce CloudFulcrum as a company to you. CloudFulcrum is a DevOps as a service company. So we pat ourselves on and we strive ourselves to be a DevOps services company where we provide um, delivery excellence to organizations in order to build their DevOps platforms or in order to implement their DevOps tools and products, and at the same point of time get the right processes in place and help the teams improve their DevOps practices. We are presently based out of four countries, here US, Canada, London, and the delivery center is based out of India, where most of our delivery is happening. We are the we are an premium partner with Copado. We have done 20 plus implementations with Copado technology where Copado is being used, and we have a 5-star success rate. Every implementation that we have done in the last 1.5, 2 years, we have been able to successfully do it, and the clients are very happy in terms of what we do. So coming to the team and some of the clients that we have done, we are a team of 80 with different skill sets. We have all the way from DevOps experts and subject matter experts to digital transformation experts who can help you transform from waterfall to agile methodology and figure out what is the processes behind it from an SDLC perspective and from a DevOps perspective. We have Salesforce implementation resources from say all the way from Sales Cloud to Commerce Cloud, CPQ, and Velocity. Uh, uh, Having said, our bread and butter on a day-to-day basis is DevOps. So we have Jenkins experts, Cloud-based experts, and as well as we have Azure pipeline experts who can help build not just on Copado and Salesforce.com, but on all the other technologies. We have strategic partnerships with almost every tool that is associated to Salesforce.com in one or the other way. We are a Salesforce Silver partner, and we are a premium partner for Copado. We are also a technology partner for AWS and Azure. We do a lot of testing automation using Provar and SLQ, where we partner with them, and coming to integration platforms, Boomi and MuleSoft. Some of our tower customers are PepsiCo, Accenture, TriNet, Thomson Reuters, and Genesis, where we have been working with them for the last 1.5 year, where we transform their digital experience from one level to other level. So going to the agenda of the call today. So the primary agenda of the call is based upon what we have seen in multiple organizations, we came up with a small Copado governance utility, which can be used in order to improve your adoption of Copado, usage of Copado, and at the same point of time, how you can get a better return of investment on, how you can get a better return of investment on your Salesforce.com and as well as Copado. These governance utilities vary across multiple areas, multiple times. So for us, DevOps is just not about tooling. So it's about making sure we bridge that gap between the developers and the operations team, and also understand and have the right processes in place and everything. This utility kind of helps to close that loop a little bit, not to the full extent, but it helps to close that loop a little bit. Swati, you mind?
Yeah, sure, Teja. So today I'm going to talk about the governance utility package, which we as CloudFulcrum are working on. And we have primarily focused on three main areas, that is adoption, performance, and basic automation. So let's start with adoption first. The Copado feature audit report will run against the org where Copado is installed and prepares a report of Copado features that are currently being used by the team based on the licenses. The features that this report includes like user story dependencies, user story bundles, rollback, sprint wall, Copado function, etc., including all the features from the recent releases. This will ensure that the teams have better adoption of Copado by utilizing all the available features to the best possible extent. For example, let's say you are using only the commit and deployment feature of Copado. This report will tell you which features are available and can be used by team. For example, let's say rollback feature, which is recently being introduced by Copado, parent-child relationship. So these are a couple of features which you can also add in a pipeline and use the available features to the best possible extent. Let's move on to the next point. Teja, can you please move to next? Thank you. Our next two utilities focuses on performance. Since Salesforce is a multi-tenant environment and all the allocated space, the allocated space is limited, we need to make sure that we are utilizing the available resources in an efficient way. To utilize the resources in an efficient way, it is important to get rid of old or obsolete branches or the records which are created frequently. Copado creates several records that keep track of Copado's activity or are auxiliary to specific functionalities. So when we do deployments using Copado, a lot of records gets created like promotion records, deployment history, rollback files, attachment, and all of these occupy space. So it is important to clean up these records from time to time. Using this utility, you will have the flexibility to set up cleanup jobs with a flexible attention policy. You will also have an option to schedule the jobs using the scheduling feature as well. Moving on to the next feature. Next in the list is Get Branches Cleanup. So Copado's branching strategy creates feature and promotion branches to move changes across a pipeline and keep all the orgs branches in sync. Over time, this can result in a considerable number of branches, especially if developers tend to validate and promote often. Since the storage and Git is limited, and if you do not perform cleanup, these huge number of branches which are created over time can result in performance issues. Thus, reducing the number of branches will help to improve the repository navigation as well as gain efficiency. So now the question arises, what branches can you safely delete from a repository? So you probably need to reuse the feature branches in order to back promote your changes, and you will need to keep your successful branches for future audits. So the best answer to this question is all the validation branches and unsuccessful promotion branches that are older than, let's say, 3 or 6 months. are the best contender to get rid of. So this utility will delete the validation and unsuccessful promotion branches as well as feature and promotion branches of all these stories which are deployed to production as well as back promoted to all lower environments. So since company need these branches for audit purposes, we have provided an option to set the retention policy, for example, 3 months or 6 months. Accordingly, you can clean up these great branches. So any questions so far?
Team, if anyone has any questions, please post it in the Q&A so that Swati and myself will be able to answer you at the end of each slide or at the end of the discussion. Thank you.
Or you can please share in the chat group as well. Thanks.
All right, moving on. Swati?
Yeah, sure, Teja. Okay, so moving on to the last part of the governance utility, that is basic automation. Automated deployment on pull request approval is one of the idea which we have worked on to reduce developers' dependence for deploying stories to next environment. With the standard functionality of Copado, once a pull request is approved by the reviewer in dev environment, the developer needs to manually deploy the story by clicking on the promote and deploy checkbox. This can result in waiting time for the deployment. So our utility will help us automate the deployment to next environment once the PR is approved by the by the reviewer, and thus save manual efforts and time. Let's move on to the next point. The next in the list of automation is setting test level on user story. With the Copado standard functionality, the default test level is no test run, and a developer needs to set the test level on story. So for example, let's say if a story has Apex. So question is, what will happen if a developer is working on a story and it has Apex and he forgot or deliberately did not set the test level? What will happen? As per Salesforce, at least 75% code coverage is must to perform deployments in production. This code coverage is not enforced at the sandbox level, and as a result of which, we often notice that developers do not write test classes until the code reaches pre-prod, which results in delays in environment and creates last-minute hustle. Let's say my pipeline is dev, QA, UAT, stage, and prod. So till UAT, when a developer or the release team deploys the code, they will not get any code coverage issue, since Salesforce will not enforce test level for sandbox to sandbox deployment. Now the issue will arise when the code reaches stage. So now let's say my code is in stage and I am doing a validation against production. So now we got a surprise, a very big surprise. We got code coverage errors. So what to do now? Now the developer will take the story back to dev environment, then he fix the code coverage, and then he has to deploy the story all the way back from dev, QA, UAT to stage, which eventually will result in delays in deployments. So our utility will help us to set the test level on a story to run specified tests if the story has Apex, starting from dev environment to ensure tests are executed at the sandbox level, which eventually will help us to avoid last-minute surprises while performing production validation and deployments. And that's the end of my talk. Just to summarize, I have covered part 1 of governance utility, where we have discussed on how to improve Copado adoption, performance, and basic automations. The next part, that is DevOps maturity reports, will be covered by Teja. Over to you, Teja.
Thank you, Swati. Team, if anybody have any questions, please put it in the chat over here so that we can answer. So the next part that I would like to cover is specifically in terms of metrics. So in terms of DORA is DevOps research and assessment. These metrics are these are standardized metrics that DORA has published, and there are some guiding principles in terms of how DevOps maturity needs to be understood and what kind of reporting is required in order to keep assessing your DevOps maturity, whether you are in the learner stage or whether you are in the advanced stage, and so forth and so on. So we have built a small subset of those maturity reports under 4 different metrics, using 4 different metrics. Deployment frequency, which is DF, lead time for change, LT, mean time to recovery, MTTR, and change failure rate. CFR. So these reports will give you a basic understanding of your organization's DevOps maturity and how to improve on top of your DevOps, how to improve in your DevOps maturity. So the first one is deployment frequency. The deployment frequency reports provides you with a view of how many deployments are happening across all your environments on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or on a sprint level, or on a monthly reporting, or even on a PI level, program increment level, to understand and calculate how the deployments are done by environment. And it also helps understand what is the effort that the team is putting in terms of this. The deployment reports can be these deployment reports can provide the visibility to the teams and leadership also to provide better capacity planning. Let's assume in this particular PI, we have a capacity planning of, let's say, 2000 story points. But as we are going through the deployment, these deployment reports can validate that whether all the 2000 story points are used, or how many deployment is it more than 2000 story points, and these can help manage your burn down charts also better. The burn down charts are very manual. That means to say that, hey, this story has these many story points and this is the amount of effort that is associated to it. But here, what we are calculating is based upon the number of deployments. We can connect your burn down charts to understand, hey, is it the realistical value that we are seeing in our burn down charts? Is it matching with the amount of deployments that are done? Because burn down charts are kind of between gives you that validation and so forth and so on. The next point that is very important is LTC, or lead time for change. Lead time for change or time to market. You can call it in either way. There's no difference. So the lead time to market defines how long did a user story from the time of a commit, how long did a user story take from development all the way till production. So assuming we have multiple quality gates, dev, QA, UAT, pre-production and production, how long did a user story be in these environments? How long did they stay in these environments? We can understand this report in multiple ways. And these reports are calculated by the amount of time the user is spending on committing the code or merging the code, or even your deployment team is spending time in deploying these to multiple environments. And for example, if a story is sitting in QA approved or QA testing status for a longer time, we can even take that into consideration for a lead time of change. These reports can be used to validate how much of business value is that particular feature or that particular story is generating versus a time taken to actually push the code. These reports can also be understood on how much time you are spending on your deployment and QA testing activities. Unfortunately, we cannot calculate the amount of time that a developer is spending in order to develop that story, which is something that we are working on right now to figure out a mechanism. But from the time of commit, we will be able to understand what is the lead time it takes post development, be it from a QA perspective, be it from a process perspective, or be it from a deployment perspective. Any questions so far? All right, I'll take that as a no because I don't see any. The next report I would like to go through is CR, change failure report. The CR reports are very important for any organization to understand the quality of the development and deployment teams. These reports can be used as a part of your retrospective, sprint retrospective, or your PI retrospectives to understand, hey, how many changes did we do and how many of them failed and how many of them are successful. So for example, if you would like to understand how many stories did the developer had to modify after it went to QA. Yes, I understand there is a QA bug status report that is available, but this will give a little bit of clarity in terms of that report to say that, hey, there is a QA bug, or how many QA bugs have been reported, and how many UAT bugs have been reported, how many production bugs have been reported, and how many times user stories have failed in a quality gate. Just not from a testing perspective, we can actually capture the failure of stories on the user story on the quality gates level also. That means, hey, if the user story failed because of coding standard issue, or did it fail because of a test coverage issue, and so forth and so on. So these kind of things can be understood based upon that. So the change failure report can provide you statistics in terms of developer productivity, sprint productivity, your overarching uh, sprint productivity, on how the sprint is going, and as well as how is your code quality looking like, and how is your developer quality looking like, and so forth and so on. There is one question. Uh, uh, we'll come back. There's one more slide and I'll come back to the questions in a minute. So time to recovery. So there are here in the time to recovery, we are calculating the amount of time is taking for a bug to be closed. That means to say that, let's take an example. Let's assume your organization just went through a major release where you have a new digital functionality going live. Uh, there there might, or typically based upon my experience, there are always one or two P1 and P2 issues where whenever you have done a major release, there tend to be some sort of issues which were not caught in testing environments. So these kind of issues, when they come, once the story or bug is created, how much time does it take for that story and bug creation process, or how much time did that bug take to go back to production, or that bug fix take over to go back to production? This is your time to recovery. Something went wrong. You want to know how much time it has immediately has taken in order to recover it. These reports are very important to understand how your release was and how many issues you had in the release. And at the same point of time, in future, when you have major releases, it gives you kind of a prediction model where to say that, hey, let's assume I have a major release going in future. I might get one or two P1 issues, and this is the average time it might take to recover from those P1 issues. So these predictions can be very important in today's technology ecosystem, especially because customer experience is the most important thing, and that is where Salesforce emphasizes, and that is where Salesforce platform has been great in terms of building that value to the customers. And if there is a disruption in the customer experience, we would be able to now predict, saying that, hey, this is the amount of time it is going to take to solve the customer experience problem. At the same point of time, from a release planning perspective also, now you can take that additional effort of time to say that, hey, let's say my code deployment is taking 2 hours of effort on Salesforce and on all the other technologies that are connected to Salesforce. This major release is going to take 10 hours to do the entire code deployment. Now you can add on another maybe 40 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours of time based upon these reports to say that, hey, there might be some issues. So let's add 2 more hours to have them aside, just to make sure that we have the time to recover if something goes wrong. So that level of planning can also be implemented or can also be added into the system as we have more reporting coming out of it. These are some of the basic reports that DORA asks every organization who is trying to improve their DevOps maturity or who is trying to do better from automation's perspective, ask us to consider or ask us to use. And this is some basic reports that we have built as a part of the CloudFulcrum governance package or CloudFulcrum package. So these are more of our testimonies from some of our customers where we have used these packages or where we have implemented. We were able to do a good job with most of our, all of our customers. Yeah, that's all. We can take a few, we can take Q&A. How do you link the bug reported as a separate user story to the actual parent user story in Copado? Yes. So in terms of this, typically when a bug is reported after production or at the time of QA level, Copado is typically integrated with your user story ALM tool, whichever is your ALM tool, Jira or ADU or any of your ALM tools. So the expectation or the actual process of using your ALM tools is to create a bug under the same story. So with the Jira and Copado integration, assuming that you are using Jira in this use case, we will be able to create the same bug on the Copado user story level. So the minute we create the bug, it can be answered or it can be added to the quality reports. Swati, you had some question. Will the Git cleanup clear branches on the repository as well? If yes, is it going to clear the child branches as well, like promotion branches when we delete the user story branches?
Yeah. Okay. So Git cleanup is performed at both repository and version control level. Also, feature branches are different from promotion branches, and we have an option to delete both of them separately. Deleting a feature branch will not by default delete the promotion branches. You have to separately delete them.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What kind of common issues faced at the time of implementation of Copado to business? Great question. So typically there is Copado being a backend technology or something that is helping the development team. The effect to business is not going to be that straightforward. When I say not going to be that straightforward, the business is not going to be affected directly. But having said, there is an indirect effect because there is a change management procedure involved when we bring in Copado or when Copado is implemented, especially with the development teams, they have to go through multiple cycles of learning curves to understand, hey, now I have to version control my code and this is how the version control looks like and everything. The first 2 or 3 sprints that are happening, we typically ask anywhere between 15 to 20% of 15 to 20% of the developer's capacity to be added for this particular activity. So yes, indirectly there is a business impact, but not for a long time. And the business will be able to see the immediate ROI in a period of 2 months because now the releases are faster, the releases are much scalable, the deployments are much scalable. So the value of the implementation of Copado can be done immediately. All right. The next question we have is how does Copado as a tool can help in audits such as SOC and ISO? All right. One of the SOC compliance, one of the biggest SOC compliance that is there is in terms of to say that, hey, if I am the developer, I should not be the person who is deploying the code to production or not deploying the code to higher testing environments like UAT or pre-prod. So now that can be enabled in Copado, where because the Copado is completely a user-based, access-based system, if I am a developer, I will have the flexibility only to deploy the code till let's say QA environment. I will not have access to deploy the code till UAT or PPE or production. And now this can be enforced and completely done through a version control system, so that if I am merging the code to QA, I will not be able to merge my code to UAT. So if I can't merge my code to UAT, the code is never deployed to UAT, or I can never make any changes on the UAT environment. I hope that answers your question. I'm happy to elaborate on it if there is anything specific you would like to understand from a SOC and ISO perspective. All right. The next question is it possible to allow a user just to validate a user story to a specific sandbox in the pipeline, but restrict the same user from deploying? Yes, as I was saying, yes, we can do that from a user by creating a user access management policy, which is part of what we do. At the start, at the implementation phase, we define separation of duties. Let's say I am a developer, I just have access to commit a piece of code and merge a piece of code. I cannot approve a piece of code. Let's assume Swati is the technical lead over from this particular project. Now she has an access to commit, merge, and as well as approve a piece of code. This way we will be able to kind of cut down or create roles and responsibilities and create separation of duties. Even though Swati is a technical lead, I can very specifically say that we can configure it in such a way that Swati can only deploy the code until QA environment or until UAT environment. I'm just making an answer, but effectively, yes, it can be done. All right. If there are any other questions that are there, I'm happy to answer. All right. That's all. If that's all the questions that are there, feel free to send us if there are any questions. I can put my email and Swati's email over here. We are happy to answer any of the questions and anything that you have. Yes, we will be at Dreamforce. Our VP of Sales and some of the team is going to be at Dreamforce. You can, we'll put a link. We'll send a link after the meeting is after the webinar is done on how you can meet as Dreamforce, and if we can absolutely answer anything. There's one more question. Any thoughts on newly introduced Copado plan? Do you think it's mature enough to replace Jira? Now, the Copado plan or the user story management thing that is there, it depends based upon how much is your organization using Jira. I don't want to say, or I don't want to really call it out that Copado can directly replace your Jira. There are things that you can do in Jira that might not be possible in Copado. There are things that can be done in Copado that might not be possible. We will only be able to answer that question the more we understand about your Jira instance and what is your usage and what is the different reporting that you have on it, and at the same point of time, what kind of systems or what kind of technologies that are using it. So yes. Yes, we are recording this session and we will provide a link to you guys after this, and as well as a copy of the governance package. We will be happy to work with you to get this package into your systems, to have a proof of concept, or if you would like to play around with the package or anything, we would be happy to work with it. You can send an email to sales@cloudfulcrum.com. One of our teammates will work with you to get this package into your Copado instance. All right, looks like those are all the questions that are there. If anybody have any questions, feel free to send us an email. We are happy to answer them. And Again, thank you all for joining the call, joining the webinar today. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone for the great audience. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.